What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and eager to see this team getting back to playing winning basketball. The Detroit Pistons' official 82-game schedule was released today. We finally have a look at what the season will look like. In this video, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the crazy opening slate. We're going to talk about the back-to-backs, the road trips. We're going to talk about the end of the season, what that could potentially look like if the Pistons are in the play-in hunt, and we'll also touch on the nationally televised games. So to kick things off, like I mentioned, quite the elephant in the room, it's the brutal 6 games to start the season. The first game of the year will be against the Indiana Pacers at home, and then we'll be on the road to play the Cavs, back home for the Celtics, back on the road for the Heat and Sixers, and then the Knicks right after that. You very well could argue that these are the 6 best teams in the East to start off the year, and I want to talk about if I think that is problematic or not. I know a lot of fans, right upon release of this schedule, definitely probably blew it out of proportion, but I do think this is a pretty terrible way to start the year. The Detroit Pistons are, of course, coming off an awful year where they only won 14 games with a lot of young players on the roster. And I was really hoping for a couple of those games that we'll be seeing in mid to early November, like the Nets or the Hornets or the Hawks or even the Raptors, to kick off the year a little bit earlier, just to kind of get a little bit of confidence under their belt and not have to play some of these big time contenders straight away when their players are fresh and, there's going to be extra eyes on them. So, all in all, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think if the Pistons can win 2 out of those first 6 games, that will be a good thing. What we just can't have happen is them to get their breaks blown off them by all 6 of these teams and start off the year 0-6. That is the last thing a team that is still a younger team, despite the veteran free agent signings, need just from a confidence standpoint. I always think back to what movie is it there? The Longest Yard. It's always stuck with me, even though I haven't seen it in probably 15, 20 years. They're talking about a game against like a really bad team to start off the year to get their confidence up. I do believe those things help. So definitely don't have any of those opportunities on the schedule here. But nevertheless, I guess the upside is this. If they can somehow manage to go 3-3 during that stretch of the first part of the year, that will be something that they can hang their hat on, and it's an opportunity to get some of the better teams out of the way early. So moving on, let's talk about the back-to-backs. The Detroit Pistons led the league in back-to-backs, or were tied for them. In case you guys don't know, back-to-backs are just playing 2 games in 2 days. And they definitely have quite a few of them again this year. I count 15 total. I think someone mentioned 14 or 13 on Twitter. Just off a quick glance, I thought there was 15. Nevertheless, that's a lot of back-to-backs. But I do think that the Pistons are a young enough team, and the veterans that they went and got during the offseason are historically healthy. I really do think that it's probably not really the end of the world, especially since a lot of them are home back-to-backs. I'm looking here in January 3rd and 4th, both home games. February 2nd and 3rd, both home games. The very end of the year, got the Knicks and Bucks back-to-back, both home games. So the better half of them are just back-to-backs where we're just chilling in Detroit, not going on the road or anything crazy like that. So I really don't think the back-to-backs are going to be too painful for this team. They do have a big West Coast trip every single year. I remember last year, I think it was more towards the All-Star break in February time. But the West Coast trip this year is actually right around Christmas. So as you can see here, on December 21st, we'll be in Phoenix. And then the Lakers on the 23rd, Christmas Day. Of course, they're not playing. And then they got Sacramento, and then they got Denver. So the West Coast trip isn't quite as brutal as I've remembered it in the past. We do get to avoid like the Warriors and the Clippers on that trip. I'm not even entirely sure when we'll be back out west to play those teams. Looks like that'll be in March. So yeah, in March we'll be back out west for a second West Coast trip where we'll play the Jazz and then the Clippers, and then the Warriors, and then the Trailblazers. So those are the 2 main West Coast trips that I do see on this schedule. I think that those probably are pretty well balanced, about as good as you possibly could see, because on that first one, we do get like the Kings and Lakers and the Suns, who aren't exactly like top of the league. And then on the second West Coast trip, we do have the Trailblazers and Jazz mixed in there. So at least there's not a brutal stretch where it goes like Warriors, Denver, Clippers, Lakers, or something like that. It's a little bit more balanced. So overall, not too bad for the West Coast trips. And then to talk about the nationally televised game. So the Pistons technically have, it depends on what you want to call a nationally televised game. They have one game on ESPN. That game that's on ESPN is against Philly on February 7th at 7:30. And then we also have 3 games that will be broadcasted on NBA TV. That will be November 21st at Charlotte, and then it will again be on January 27th at Cleveland, and March 3rd at Utah, is all games on NBA TV. I personally don't really think twice about nationally televised games myself. I mean, for me, it's just another game. Unfortunately, on those games, I don't get to hear the greatness that is Blaha and Kelser. And the Pistons haven't had tons of them over the past couple of years. I think they were scheduled for one last year, and that game ended up being flexed off. And that's something to keep in mind as well. That, if the Pistons, for whatever reason, are doing way better than expected, they very well can adjust these games and put them on national TV. And if the Pistons are doing poorly and say Embiid's out or something like that, it wouldn't be too shocking to see them pull that game off of ESPN and replace it with one that they think will get more viewership. But I do know, for whatever reason, that is something that I think some of the players pay a lot of attention to. I think I remember hearing either it was Cade talking about it, or maybe it was his cousin Ashton tweeting about it, but it always seems like it was something top of mind with a couple of the young players on the team. They want to be on national TV. They want to have more eyes on them where they can showcase themselves to the rest of the world, who they are as basketball players. But overall, not something that I think too hard about. And of course, as a Pistons fan, you don't really expect them to be on national TV. If you look at the teams like the Lakers and the Warriors and the Knicks, like they have like 30 some games on national TV per year. So yeah, it is what it is. They'll start putting us on national TV when we start competing for championships, because Detroit isn't a big enough market to command those types of things unless the team is good. And that's that. So overall, just kind of quick glance looking through the schedule and everything. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It's nothing that I wasn't expecting. The only thing that kind of took me by surprise was the pretty brutal start to the year. I think that's going to be the most important part about the start of the year. If they can just win 2 of those first 6 games, I will be pretty content. If they can win 3, I'll be ecstatic, because right once they get through those 6, they get the Nets and they get the Hornets and they get the Hawks all within the same week. So those teams are definitely more the Pistons' speed, more the Pistons' age, and games that you would expect them to be more competitive in. And of course, you got to play who's in front of you. It's the NBA. The Pistons, I remember, beat the 73-9 Warriors on Ben Wallace's jersey retirement night. You can beat any team in the NBA. It's just a matter of doing it. There's not like a crazy mismatch anywhere. Even, the best team in the league can lose to the worst team in the league any year in the NBA. These guys are all pros. It's really not that crazy. So let me know what you guys think of the schedule. Really not taken aback by anything, even that first stretch of the year, although a little surprising and a little bit harsh. I think it's workable. Let me know what you guys think. Talk soon.